Hi, everyone. I am Stacey Gualand, and this is the Women's Eye podcast. And I thank you so much for tuning in today. Now, on this show, you're going to meet fascinating women all the time who are taking charge, making an impact, and changing lives around the world. Women like Stacey Reiss, the award-winning documentary filmmaker and producer of films like The Eagle Huntress, The Perfection, and the soon-to-be-released Sundance hit Spaceship Earth, which I cannot wait to see. Now, we have profiled Stacey many times here on the Women's Eye. She is a dear friend of our family. And not only are we both former Inside Edition colleagues, the early years, we both spell our name the right way, and that's EY. Right, Stacey?
That's true. Thanks for inviting me. I know you stole my line because I was going to say I always like to talk to a Stacey that spells her name C-E-Y. So.
I know. There aren't many of us. I don't know, maybe. But no, it's great. It's so great to see because it's been a long time since last we spoke. But I've always been an admirer from afar, for sure. And where you have the trails you have blazed, since the Inside Edition days. It's amazing. It's amazing where you are at right now. Where are you right now?
Well, those Inside Edition days were a long time ago. So
yes.
We've both come a long way since then. It was a good boot camp for getting started in the business. That's for sure.
Yes. We haven't aged a bit.
But I'm usually based in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm currently in Park City, Utah. My father has a second home here, and we had come out here to go skiing a few weeks ago. And while we were here, the mountains shut down, the LA shut down, then New York shut down. And rather than try to go home, we decided to stay put. It's been actually a nice place to be. It's quiet. There's not a lot of people around. We see the mountains and nature every day. It's definitely weird not being at home. And we had to set up, virtual offices here, and my kids are doing remote schooling here, but all things considered, we feel pretty lucky.
Absolutely. That's the crazy thing too, is that, you must just be heartsick when you see what's happening in New York. Friends, co-workers, everybody that you know there. What is it that do you speak with them? What is it that you say to the folks of New York right now?
Well, it's really strange not being in New York because, as we were saying, I got my start as a journalist. So I worked for many years for NBC News, and I covered, every major news event in New York, from, the blackout in New York to 9/11. I covered Hurricane Katrina. So the idea that I'm not only not in New York, but I'm not working in news any longer is kind of this very surreal experience. There hasn't been there's never been something in my lifetime on this scale. But there hasn't been something like this where I haven't sort of been in the trenches covering it. So that also feels very strange to be from this great distance observing. I've been in touch with lots of colleagues I work with in New York, lots of friends. And I think we're all experiencing much of the same thing because we're all in our homes. Most of us obviously can't see anyone else, can go outside for short stints of time. So in a way, it doesn't really matter where you are, whether you are in New York or LA, or I actually have, very close friends in Paris and Rome, and we're all in this together. So it's the same experience no matter where you're located.
Yeah, that's the feeling. And for you too, though, having the news background that you have, are you feeling like, wow, I wish that I were covering this right now? Or is it something where it's a matter of relief? Like, you know what? Because that's kind of how I'm feeling, that I feel like I'm kind of, I want to be like arm's length from it. I'm watching it, but I don't want to be a part of it. Is that weird? It's like, am I a real journalist,
I think that one of the things I've realized is that since that time of 9/11, I've had 2 kids. And so my perspective is very different. Like right now, my perspective is making sure my children are okay, how to manage their, dislocation, anxiety. And, during those other events, I didn't have that same concern. So I could go put myself out there covering something and not really think about anyone else. So it's just like a different point of view and a different time in my life. I actually did get a phone call, I guess maybe 10 days ago, about someone who was trying to make a film about COVID-19, and was I interested in producing it? And, I had this like real push-pull of,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I'm really interested, but I can't work 24/7 right now. Like there are other people that I need to be there for. And so that's been the challenge for me. It's like, I want to be able to help other people, but I think I have to also, focus on my family and focus inward right now.
Absolutely. That's interesting that you bring that up because I have seen there's like a 4-minute clip of filmmakers were in Wuhan there to film another movie. And then, of course, that just all came to a halt. And then they started capturing the images going around in Wuhan. So that's the makings of the beginning of, I think, what is going to be a long form documentary. How is this changing the film industry, do you think? Is this going to just they open the floodgates for documentaries on this unprecedented, this is the biggest event in history ever.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we'll see. I mean, I've definitely heard, about different projects.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very hard right now to make, to be in production because it's not really safe to kind of be out there filming. I think most, shows in production all shut down at this
Yeah.
point. I don't think there are too many that are still in production. So I think that's the big challenge. It's like, can you make a film about what's going on when it might not be the wisest thing to be out there on the front lines covering this. And, even from a, like a journalist point of view, I think it's really challenging. I've spoken to friends of mine that are still at NBC and they were doing all of their broadcasts, everything remotely. It's very like, you can't go and be
There's no
inside a
boots on the
hospital.
ground per se,
Right.
Yeah.
You can't be on the ground. I mean, and I'm sure there'll be some exceptions and I'm sure some people will do that. Um, and projects will come out, but it remains to be seen what will actually come out of this.
Yeah. For you too, you know, you are very obviously very busy constantly with all of the different projects, many that are beginning, some are in the middle, some are finished, some have been picked up, and purchased at Sundance this year. I mean, talk about how your 2020 began as far as your film work, and perhaps maybe there's things that have been challenged with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a real challenge, and it's been a challenge for, I think, everyone. I don't know any of my colleagues who have, not been sort of hit by this in some way. I mean, I went to Sundance with a film called Spaceship Earth, and we were really lucky to premiere it there. And that film festival happened because every other film festival, for the most part, that it was invited to after that has now been postponed or canceled.
Yeah.
So the whole film festival landscape has really changed. And then, the film was purchased by Neon. Neon is a theatrical distributor. They, recently won 3 Academy Awards for Parasite.
Yeah.
We couldn't be happier. It's like the
I
greatest.
was gonna say that's pretty good company there, Stace.
Yeah, I was really excited. If you asked me like who I wanted to buy the movie going into Sundance, it would have been Neon. So, and I think the challenge is, I don't know what will happen. We'll see what will happen with that film. At least that film is finished, and we're in the process of delivering it to Neon. So that's a positive. We didn't have to, we were done, so we didn't have to shut down production. While I was at Sundance, another, a director that I teamed up with, we did like a fundraising breakfast for a new project that we wanted to do and raise some development money. And we're very excited about, a few weeks later, going on a development shoot to Asia to research this new film.
Wow.
And guess what? Like, 2 weeks ago, we had to pull the plug on that and return the financing to those funders because we don't know if and when it'll ever be feasible to make this film in Asia.
Wow. That's
So that,
it's interesting because the last time we interviewed you, you had said, as a producer, I'm quoting you, you need to be nimble, a good problem solver, and open to change. Even the landscape for releasing your film can change while you're in the process of making it. So, boom, this is what's happening for you right this moment. And so for you, yeah, you're very even keel, very steady. But how does you just have to adapt and move forward, I guess. What else can you do?
I mean, you do. I mean, I always have, like 5 balls in the air. I mean, and, I'm trying to not make any of them fall, but I'm also realistic that there's usually like projects that, some will be at different stages, some will happen, some won't happen. I mean, I just got involved in starting to do some scripted work. So I produced my first narrative film last year, The Perfection, which is on Netflix, and have been working with that team on a new project. And I've also optioned a book with another director for another scripted project. So like right now, this is actually a really good time to have scripted projects, because we had a big creative meeting yesterday with, the director and the writer that we just hired. And, we're kind of talking about what we want the script to look like. And all of that work can happen. I mean, the writer is in LA, the director is usually based in Vietnam, and I'm usually based in New York. So we wouldn't be together in person anyway.
Yeah. You'd be doing this.
Right. So that's happening. I have a number of other projects that are in sort of pre-production early stages. So we're, getting, treatments together, decks together, sizzle reels together, all the things that we can do. I think the big question, and so like, the moment that someone says like, great, go, like we'll be ready to go with different projects. I think the big question mark with this is when.
Yeah.
Like, it's very hard to come up with any kind of timeline without, I mean, no one really knows.
Yeah.
And like, you can't make anything without having production. So at a certain point,
you can get only so far
to make work, so that's kind of where I'm at. But I feel
you talked about, that you're very much stepping into more the narrative type storytelling as opposed to full on documentary. Obviously, that's not something you'd ever, walk away from. You're too good. There's no way.
No, but my first love.
It was exactly.
My first love.
It fantastic, and you do such an amazing job with the different types of stories that you find and the people that you find. But how are documentaries now sort of becoming our best friend? I mean, this, McMillions. I'm trying to think of all the documentaries I've watched just in the last 2 weeks. Of course, Tiger King. How are those now becoming even more essential in this day and age right now, or in this climate, I guess?
I mean, I think that right now people are consuming content in a way that they never have before. I mean, I think that, I know even for me, I watch lots and lots of documentaries. I go to a lot of film festivals. I often am watching them for awards and things like that. So I'm very caught up on documentary viewing. And I've sent out a lot of lists to people of like, here are great documentaries to watch with your kids. Here are great documentaries to watch, by yourself or with your partner. I personally never have time to watch like TV series. Like people are always like, oh, talking about
what are you binging?
Yeah. And I'm like, finally like, oh, I can catch up. I can watch those things that, I don't normally watch. So I have to admit, I don't think I've watched one documentary. Oh, no, I've watched one documentary. I watched After Truth on HBO, which
all right, I'm writing that down right now.
Yeah, it's directed by Andrew Rossi, who did a documentary about the New York Times, and he did a documentary about the Met Gala. And this is his look into this age of disinformation and fake news. And it's quite good, and it's on HBO.
We did watch that, yeah. Or After Truth. Yes. Yeah, we just watched it because it's taking about how all of these different stories, how they get completely fed out there and become viral, and they're like the Pizzagate and those kinds of things. Yeah,
and he really gets inside. So it's interesting. And also, as like a journalist, I love to watch how these journalists are dealing with information and how people are how it's getting filtered in different ways.
Yeah.
But no, I'm happy people are watching so many documentaries. I mean, I really want to watch Crib Camp. That was at Sundance.
Okay.
Night at Sundance. It's on Netflix, and it's on my list of films to watch. I've been trying to find things that I can watch as a family. So we've watched the new Star Wars, and we've watched Inception. I have two boys. So, if I ask them to watch too many documentaries, they're like, Mom, that's your work.
They're on to you.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of lists, Spaceship Earth is has already been put on a list of the best documentaries of 2020 so far. Congratulations on that. I cannot wait to see this film. I'm going to ask you how eventually we'll be able to see it. but I remember this story because this was back in what, 91 to 93 ish, and I was working at Inside Edition at that time. So I remember all the different. I don't know all the intimate details, you know, but how this project. I mean, are you not surprised that it's on a best of list already? It's not everything.
I mean, I'm always happy when I make a list. I love a good list. So, that was really exciting. I mean, when we got into Sundance and the documentary competition, we obviously were like, overjoyed with that news. I'm not surprised in that it's a story that I think people kind of remember. Like, it's sort of like for you, it's like kind of in recent memory, but it was like just pre-internet. So
yes,
people don't really remember it. In fact, most people are like, oh, you mean Biodome, that Pauly Shore movie? I'm like, no, not that movie.
No.
So I think that there's it's also like this spectacular thing to see. So if you Google Biosphere 2, which actually still exists in Arizona, you see this enormous glass terrarium, which is this incredible structure, and it's like so sci-fi looking. And
I never knew it was there. I live in Las Vegas, so I think it's only like a 3-4 hour drive for me to go see it. So that is on the plan.
Closed right now, given what's going on in the world with coronavirus, but it is usually open to visitors. And so, the spectacularness of the structure and the story combined with this, like, you can just kind of remember it. Anyway, it's not, a lot of people were there's never been a film about it before. So a lot of people were very excited to kind of understand it. And I also think we thought it was in the zeitgeist before, but the film, the story is really about 8 people who go and live inside a closed system for 2 years. So if we feel all cooped up in cabin fever after like 2 or 3 weeks, they were there for 2 years, and they were doing work to study, the environment and what it would be like in a closed system or for life on another planet. But it could not be more relevant right now.
I was just going to say, because like the timing for you is incredible. Why do you think that it is so timely right now? What is this a metaphor for something else, or metaphor for what we're living right now? How do you think that really represents itself to what we're dealing with now?
It's hard to really say, because when you're in something, it's very hard to see it in a rear view mirror. But I do think, not that I would ever ask for us to experience what we're going through right now, but it felt like we needed a reset, like our planet needed a reset. And
I felt like the planet is a little mad at us right now. Is mad at the human race,
Exactly. And so part of what I think these people were trying to do 25 years ago is they could see this. They were sort of early on to this idea of climate change. They were studying all of this at the time. And I think like now we can't ignore this. And they were, very early into this. So, my goal with making this film, again, this was sort of pre-coronavirus, was that people would see this and see the work they did, and hopefully people, it would change their behavior, it would change their actions, and we could learn a lot from this work that was done 25 years ago and like kind of forgotten. One of the most like beautiful parts about Sundance is we brought some of the people that were involved in that experiment.
That's what's amazing too for your documentary, is not only did you have many of the original people who put themselves in the biosphere, but that you had endless hours of footage. I mean, that's a documentarian's dream, The
dream. One of the people that was inside was a doctor named Roy Walford, and he filmed everything that happened inside as part of his research. He had written a lot of books about diet, and obviously, he was the person giving them medical attention. And so his archives really help us kind of show you what happens, in those 2 years inside.
Yeah, because did you really feel in doing this film, because you work with Matt Wolf, right?
Wolf is the director, yes.
Yeah, the directors. You had worked with him in the past too, but as you were going through the filming or putting this together, did you really feel a sense that you were a part of this thing, a part of the biosphere yourself? Did you get a sense of what it must have been like?
I mean, I think that it's interesting because it was about a team of people that came together and pulled something off. And I
Yeah.
think every film that you make is about a team of people that come together and pull something off. Like every film, no matter how many times they make a film, it presents new challenges, new personalities. And again, like you just have to adapt and deal with it, and keep going. I mean, that's sort of the greatest thing I think about making films is that it's like everyday problem solving, like you just every day are like, okay, this happened, what am I going to do about it? You don't like say, okay, I'm not going to do anything. You have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so, I like to tease Matt that like for 2 years we went into our own biosphere, and luckily we came out and we're still friends and we're actually collaborating and brainstorming other projects.
Great.
But yes, it was very much its own biosphere, the film team that helped make it.
It's the fact that they lived that experience and that it's now coming back and I mean, millions of people will be able to see what took place back then. But what is it that we should learn from that, do you think? Because it wasn't all a perfect experiment. I mean, it's when you put a bunch of humans together in a space like that, that things are going to go wrong. Um, it's human nature, I guess is what we could call it. But what is it that you think people should take away from this film?
I think that it's really about the power of small groups and how small groups of people can really come together and do something and achieve great things and accomplish change. And, you know, um, often when we think of innovation, we think of people that are in the tech field in Silicon Valley. It all started with like a small team and their innovators and their disruptors. And I think that I hope people will see this. I hope younger people will see this. Like, I know my own children came to see this, and they will realize that even though they're just one person or a small group of people, that big things can happen out of that.
Yeah.
And I think that we need those fresh perspectives and those innovators to give us some new ideas about how to, face some of these challenges that are ahead of us.
Yeah. And it's I think we hope that we all can learn something from what we're this whole coronavirus situation now too, and what we're gonna. I mean, I imagine there's going to be things that are going to emerge out of this whole situation that we're going to have. That's going to change our future. Is that how you kind of look at what we're going through right now?
A little bit. I mean, again, it's really hard to say because it's so early into it,
Yeah.
but you know, there have been silver linings for me, which are, spending more time with my family. I
Mhm.
travel a lot doing the work that I do. So getting to be with them and have breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day, has been a
Hasn't gotten
silver
old
lining.
yet.
Maybe I'll feel differently if you ask me again in a few weeks. Um, Also teaching my children how to clean toilets has been a silver lining and things like that. But I think that it's making all of us appreciate the things that we miss right now, the things that we can't do right now, and the things that we really take for granted, like our
Yeah.
health and our communities and our elderly population and our planet, and like not taking those things for granted anymore. And I think that I hope that there's that shift in perspective and people can really look at it as a reset, and that when we all get to go back outside, that we go back with different intentions in mind, and a different appreciation of the things that we really miss.
Yeah. Do you think, or in a post-coronavirus world, what would you like to work on, do you think? I mean, has this changed um, your desire, in terms of who your subject matter is? Because you say a lot of the time it's those, it's a particular person and their specific story that inspires you. So from here, does that change your search for the next great documentary, do you think?
I think for me, there's like three different things that I normally think about when I'm deciding about different projects. One is the team of people that I'm going to collaborate with, and I've really tried to focus in on working with people, not always that I've worked with in the past, because I'm certainly working on some new projects with new people, but really thinking about the people that I want to be in constant communication with, collaborating with, making something with. So even more so now, even more so as we're apart, like, you know, who I'm getting on the phone with to talk about different projects. I think that, you know, in terms of subject matter, it's to me like what I want to think about all the time. So I can only take on a project if it's like I'm okay with it taking over my dreams, taking over my, you know, my Sunday afternoon thoughts. Like I really want to be engaged with it and thinking about it. And so that doesn't really change. It's sort of like how I always am. I want to feel like I'm really connected to the material. You
Yeah.
know, the other thing that I always think about is like, I love to travel. I love to travel to places I've never been before. I know when the director of The Eagle Huntress contacted me and I was like, wow, Mongolia, sure,
Mongolia?
I'll go on a shoot to
The question
Mongolia.
is, would you go back there? I don't know.
You know, and so I think that's always been a real draw for me. Making The Diplomat, we traveled to 9 different countries making that movie.
Wow.
That's a big question mark. Like, I think as soon as someone says it's okay to travel again, I will be the first person to book my flight to wherever. But I do think that there's going to be like a shift in can you, you know, produce internationally in the same way.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's amazing. I mean, and you did say there are projects that you're working on right now, but first and foremost, Spaceship Earth, because you were, you know, before all this started, you were planning the release.
mhm.
So, do you know at this point when and where we will be able to watch it en masse?
I don't know yet. So, you know, Neon obviously bought the movie and, you know, stay tuned and I will let you know. And maybe by the time this is released, we will know, but I don't know at this point. I know that the film feels very relevant right now.
Yeah.
And I think all of our goal is for it to be released in 2020. So,
Yeah. And also, too, just the whole concept of climate change, that on some level, perhaps coronavirus will also look ahead in terms of how we combat climate change. And I think that's very much also another theme of Spaceship Earth too, you know?
well,
So
I hope these doctors that are working on a vaccine, I mean, that's what I mean by like a small group of people
yes,
who are coming together. And I hear from all different countries around the world to try to solve something together. Like that's a huge leap, in my opinion.
absolutely. Well, thank you for your small group work efforts too over the years, because your body of work is amazing, and I can't wait to see what's in the future for you. So thank you, Stacey.
Thank you. It's been so fun to see you.
And you too. I know it's been forever. I feel I'm like all these memories flashing back, back front of mind. So, well, now if you want to know more about Stacey and Spaceship Earth, you can just go to the Women's Eye website, and also Stacey, where else? Stacey Reiss production, or staceyreiss.com, right? It'd be the best way as well too. So fantastic. Now you can also find on our website 20 Women Changemakers. It features many of the fabulous females that we interview right here on the air, and you can get a copy. Just go to anywhere where you buy books, and in this case, let's just stick it to changemakersbook.com. And also Stacey might also make a special appearance in the next Changemakers book in the series, which is fantastic. So lastly, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. And I just want to thank you for tuning in to the Women's Eye Radio. I'm Stacey Gualand. Remember, it's the world as we see it.